She faked a pregnancy to trap a millionaire into marriage. But he already knew. And what he did next? It destroyed everything she had ever built. Marcus Chen built his fortune from nothing. 20 years of 18-hour days, failed businesses, and sleeping in his car until one breakthrough changed everything. At 42, he was worth $53 million. But success came with a price. His first wife left him for his business partner. His second marriage lasted 8 months before she cleaned out their joint accounts and disappeared. So when Victoria Ashford walked into his life at a charity gala, he wanted to believe. She was different. Educated. Independent. She claimed to run her own interior design firm. She never asked about his money. She split checks at dinner. She drove a modest car. For 6 months, Marcus allowed himself to hope. Then she told him she was pregnant. And Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in years. Joy. But here's where everything changes. Because 3 days later, Marcus would discover a receipt that would unravel everything. The receipt was from a pharmacy. Dated 3 weeks before they had even met. One pregnancy test kit. But that wasn't what made Marcus's blood run cold. It was the second item. A book called Securing Your Financial Future Through Strategic Relationships. Now, a different man might have confronted her immediately. Screamed. Thrown her out. But Marcus didn't become a millionaire by being impulsive. Instead, he did something far more calculated. He hired Raymond Price, a private investigator who specialized in background checks for high-net-worth individuals. What Raymond discovered over the next 2 weeks would make Marcus realize Victoria wasn't just a gold digger. She was a professional. And Marcus? He was her fourth target. If this is already making your blood boil, hit that like button because this story is just getting started. Raymond's first report landed on Marcus's desk on a Tuesday morning. And it contained a name that changed everything. Derek Thompson. 34. Personal trainer. And according to Raymond's surveillance photos, Victoria's actual boyfriend of 3 years. They met every Tuesday and Thursday at a boutique hotel downtown. Derek drove a car registered to Victoria. He lived in an apartment she paid for. They were partners. In every sense of the word. But here's where it gets truly disturbing. Derek wasn't just her boyfriend. He was her spotter. He identified wealthy, lonely targets at high-end gyms and country clubs. He gathered intelligence. Relationship status. Net worth. Vulnerabilities. Then Victoria would engineer a chance encounter. The charity gala where she met Marcus? Derek had been his personal trainer for 2 months before that night. He'd learned that Marcus was desperate for a family. That he regretted never having children. That he would do anything for the right woman. And Victoria had used every piece of that information. Now imagine you're Marcus in this moment. Would you confront them? Or would you wait? Marcus waited. He waited because Raymond wasn't done. The investigator had found 3 other victims. Robert Mallory, real estate developer, divorced Victoria after 6 months with a settlement of $1.2 million. James Whitfield, hedge fund manager, annulled the marriage after discovering she'd forged bank documents. Cost him $800,000 in legal fees. And Thomas Reed. This one was different. Thomas had discovered the scheme before the wedding. He'd threatened to go to the police. 3 weeks later, Thomas's business was destroyed by anonymous accusations of fraud. Accusations that were later proven false. But the damage was done. Victoria and Derek didn't just steal money. They destroyed lives. They had a system. A pattern. And they'd never once been caught. But that was just the beginning. Because Raymond discovered one more thing that made Marcus's plan for revenge not just possible, but inevitable. Victoria's own mother hated what her daughter had become. And she was willing to help. But that's not even the worst part. Because everything I just told you? That's just the setup. Victoria's mother, Patricia, had kept records. Bank statements showing money transfers from Victoria to Derek. Burner phone bills. Screenshots of text messages planning each target. And most damning of all? Medical records. Victoria had undergone a procedure 2 years earlier that made pregnancy impossible. The test she'd shown Marcus? Purchased online from a medical supply company. A prop. A lie designed to force him into a quick wedding before a prenuptial agreement could be properly negotiated. She'd used the same trick on Robert Mallory. But here's where Marcus proved he wasn't like the others. He didn't cancel the wedding. He didn't confront her. Instead, he proposed something that made Victoria's eyes light up with pure greed. He suggested they get married in 3 weeks. At his estate. With 200 guests. And Victoria, thinking she'd won, agreed immediately. Think about that for a second. She had no idea what was coming. The 3 weeks before the wedding, Marcus played his role perfectly. The loving fiancé. The excited father-to-be. He even cried when they looked at baby furniture. Victoria reported every detail back to Derek, laughing about how easy this mark was. What she didn't know was that Marcus had been busy. First, he hired Victoria's company to decorate his estate for the wedding. Her company that didn't actually exist. When she tried to explain the lack of contractors, Marcus recorded every lie. Second, he invited all of Victoria's previous victims. Robert, James, and even Thomas Reed, whose reputation had finally been restored. They came not as guests, but as witnesses. Third, and this is where Marcus proved he was a genius, he had Victoria sign a prenuptial agreement. But not any prenup. This one contained a clause that Victoria clearly didn't read carefully. In the event of fraud or misrepresentation regarding the marriage, all gifts, properties, and assets transferred would be immediately forfeited. Victoria signed it thinking the pregnancy lie was her only secret. She had no idea Marcus knew everything. The wedding day arrived. 200 guests. White roses. A string quartet. Victoria looked radiant in a designer gown that Marcus had paid for. Derek sat in the 5th row, posing as a distant cousin. Everything was perfect. The ceremony began. The officiant spoke about love and trust and partnership. Then came the vows. Marcus went first. He spoke beautifully about finding love again, about hope, about family. Victoria was actually crying. Then it was her turn. She promised to love, honor, and cherish. To be faithful. To be honest. She finished and smiled at Marcus. And that's when Marcus turned to the guests. I want to thank everyone for being here today, he said. Especially Robert, James, and Thomas. Victoria's previous husbands and victim. The silence was deafening. Victoria's face went white. And I want to thank Derek Thompson in row 5. Victoria's boyfriend of 3 years. Wave to everyone, Derek. Derek stood up and ran. He made it to the parking lot before security stopped him. But Marcus wasn't done. He pulled out a tablet and played a recording. Victoria's voice, crystal clear, laughing about how easy Marcus was. Talking about the fake pregnancy. Planning their escape to Costa Rica after the wedding. 200 guests heard every word. Then Marcus read from the prenuptial agreement. The fraud clause. Victoria had already received gifts worth $300,000. The engagement ring. The car. The wardrobe. All of it, forfeited. She tried to scream that he couldn't prove anything. That's when Patricia stood up. Her own mother. In front of everyone, Patricia handed Marcus a folder of evidence. Bank records. Medical files. Everything. Victoria collapsed. She was escorted off the property by security. The police were waiting at the gate. Not for the fraud against Marcus, but for the years of wire fraud and conspiracy charges that the previous victims had finally filed. And here's where it gets even worse for Victoria. Derek broke down in custody and confessed to everything, trying to save himself. The aftermath was brutal for Victoria. Wire fraud, conspiracy, identity manipulation. The charges piled up from 3 states. Derek's confession implicated her in everything, including the campaign to destroy Thomas Reed's business. She faced up to 15 years in federal prison. Her assets were frozen. Her fake company dissolved. And every luxury item Marcus had given her was repossessed. But perhaps the most devastating blow came from Patricia. Victoria's mother gave a television interview explaining why she'd turned against her own daughter. She talked about watching her little girl transform into someone unrecognizable, about the shame of knowing her daughter destroyed lives, and about how Marcus had given her the courage to finally do the right thing. Victoria watched that interview from a holding cell. Marcus, meanwhile, held a party at his estate that same evening. Robert, James, and Thomas were guests of honor. They toasted to justice, to patience, and to the fact that sometimes, karma doesn't just arrive. It arrives with a 3-course dinner and a prenuptial agreement. 6 months later, Victoria accepted a plea deal. 7 years in federal prison. Derek received 4 years for his cooperation. The judge called their scheme a systematic and heartless exploitation of human vulnerability. Marcus donated the value of Victoria's forfeited gifts to a non-profit that helps fraud victims rebuild their lives. Thomas Reed's business recovered completely. He wrote Marcus a letter saying he finally felt like he could sleep again after 3 years of nightmares. Robert remarried someone he met at the wedding, of all places. James started a foundation to educate wealthy individuals about relationship fraud. And Patricia? She reconciled with her other daughter, whom Victoria had alienated years ago. She said losing Victoria to prison was devastating, but losing her to greed had happened long before.